All right, guys, let's start. Also, yesterday we had ended up over here somewhere. We did the installation and we talked a bit about data types. So we'll continue from there, a bit on how Python works and what is dynamic typing, etc., etc. Is anyone facing any kind of issues or anything related to installation or any other issues do you guys have? Any kind of issues, any problems you faced yesterday, probably you want to ask right now, feel free to ask. Okay, so let's continue with data types, whatever we had done yesterday. Let's quickly revise that thing. Right, so with respect to data types, let's start with this thing, print, let's say type of 1. So we did this yesterday, and let's say 1.0, and then let's say 1 in quotes, and let's try a few more. Let's say true. All right. Just can anyone tell me what would be the types for these things? The first one should be an integer. Second one would be what? Similarly for third one and for the fourth one. Would anyone like to answer?
Float, string, and Boolean.
A Boolean, yeah, correct. So Python also has a Boolean type, which we didn't discuss yesterday. So these are the fundamental or basic types. Yeah, that was correct. Great, Prashant. So these are the types that are available in Python, just like other programming languages, and these are the fundamental types that are available. Also, if you notice over here, it says class end. All right. So typically, when you work with other programming languages, when you're working with basic or primitive data type, they are not classes. Okay, so primitive means the very basic or fundamental data types in a programming language. They are not classes, but in Python, specifically, I would say in Python 3, everything is a class or an object. All right. So when I say type of 1, 1 is an object of class integer. All right. Sorry. What is a class? We'll talk about it day after tomorrow. But essentially in Python, remember one thing, everything is either a class or an object. So integer is a class and 1 is an object of type integer. Okay. Does that sound good? Any questions? Give me a second, guys. Hey guys, sorry, I have a bad throat today. So please mind me sneezing or coughing. All right, so let's come back. So these are the basic or fundamental data types, but as I said, so everything in Python is either a class or an object. So same thing we are seeing over here right now. It doesn't say just int, it says class int, okay? And type is the function to check the type of something, all right? So, and these things are functions, print, type, all these are functions, cool? Now coming down, so let's start by writing certain programs, all right? Let's start with a very simple thing. There is another function in Python called as input. Okay, what I want you guys to do is just run this thing. Once you run this thing, it will show you a prompt. Type something and it will print that out again. All right, just try it now, quick. On your system. Does that work? It should work. All right. So basically, if you also notice one thing over here, let's try one more thing. So input is a function just like print. Okay. The job of print is to print something on screen. Job of input is to take input from the user, like whatever you want to give into your program. So input is a function to get something in your program from the user. Okay. But the input comes in the form of text. So what we do is, let's say, while using this input function, I write a simple thing. Input also allows you to pass a prompt. Prompt, for example, you want to tell the user, like, what do you want them to enter? Let's say, enter a number. And then I store the result of this function into a variable called as a. All right. So certain functions give you back a result. For example, input, whatever you type, it gives you back the result, and you can store it inside a variable like we are doing over here. Fine. Similarly, what we'll do is we'll ask the user to enter number 2 times. And once we have the numbers, we'll just say print A plus B. All right. Now, if I run this code, if I enter 10, and then if I enter 20, what do you expect to see on my screen as an output? What do you think would come out?
30.
Yeah, that's do you really think 30? When would 30 come out? If the input is integer, all right. But what does this mean when you see 10, 20? What does input gives you? What would be the type of this thing of A and B? If I just go and say print type of A and type of B, if I run this again with inputs 1 and 2, you see that the types are what? Strings. So what happens is, whenever you call this input function, it gives you the input in the form of a string, always. So, but what we want is, we don't want this thing. We want it to get converted to an integer. So what we do is we say A equal to int of A and B equals to int of B. So this gets converted to integer. And then if I run this thing, it gives me this output. All right, so I'm giving this code to you guys on this thing. Quickly try it on your system. Give it a shot, guys, quick. Does that work? Are you guys trying right now with me, or are you just watching? Just also let me know. Otherwise, so I won't wait for you to try out things. If anyone needs time to try out, let me know. I'll wait for you to do that, and then we'll continue. All right. So if I ask you to write a program now, would you guys be able to do that? Let's say I want you to do this thing. It can be like that. Yeah, correct. So exactly. You can also write it in a short way. That's what typically people do. You can write it like int of input of this thing. So this is your method chaining, or like method chaining. So what you are saying is, call the input function. The innermost things gets called first. Whatever is returned by the input function, give it to int. Int will convert it to integer and then store it inside it. So either way works. Sorry, guys. So let me put this. Also, this thing also. So now I want you guys to write a program. Can you guys quickly try this thing out and paste your code over here?
My thing is not executing in Jupyter Notebook.
It's not executing in the sense, did you close this terminal that was open yesterday?
Yeah, that did open.
That's open. All right.
Yeah, that's open.
Can you try to reopen this Jupyter Notebook again?
Okay, but I think this thing works in my command prompt or Windows PowerShell.
Mm-hmm.
In this thing, it's not like executing it.
In this thing, what do you mean by this thing exactly?
Like what in Jupyter Notebook, it is not executing.
It should actually. So, okay, do you see this button, interrupt?
Yeah, I see that.
Can you interrupt and then try to run it again with Control Enter? Does it work?
Yeah, now it's on. Now it works. Now it works.
Yeah, so the same thing happened for me also. I don't know why it happened, but it did happen.
Yeah, but sometimes
So,
it disconnects actually. Like I don't know why. It also disconnects sometimes.
It shouldn't. It can disconnect only if you close the terminal, otherwise it won't.
Yeah, but it was doing it very often for me like yesterday, but not today. It's stable, but it's not executed. It was not executed. Now it's okay.
Okay, but that's the benefit with local setup. Like it doesn't disconnect. If you are using collab, or if someone is using collab, then disconnection or something like that often happens. But with local, it shouldn't. If it happens too frequently, just Google like it happens for you. What's the solution people are saying? Or maybe try a reinstall
Okay.
because it shouldn't happen at all. It never happened for me. Disconnection. All right. So guys, can you when you paste your code, can you also type in your names? For example, like over here with the hash your name. And there's only one solution, guys. Can anyone else also try out? All right, cool. Guys, I'm waiting for a minute more, and then this is the code. That's it. If anyone wants to put out a different piece of code, I want to see if anyone thinks something different. But this is actually the piece of code, the simplest thing you can write. Good, guys. Is anyone else going to paste? Otherwise, we'll continue. All right, let's continue.
Yeah. Can we have this Google link? Google what? Doc
Okay,
link
the
or-
doc link.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Hold on. I've just pasted it. Cool. Prashant, you're typing something. What happened?
No, the link issue, it is not working for me. So I'll just take this one. I'm unable to, paste or something.
Unable to paste. Why is it that?
A minute, I'll just reopen that.
Like you should have an extension of what, Google Docs in your Chrome to Control V
Yes, yes.
use a shortcut.
Is it? I don't think there's an extension. You just open this page and it works.
No. It was showing to me yesterday, so I did it. It works for me.
Okay. Is there an extension?
Yeah, it is there. This next.
I don't have any. Okay, maybe. Because how these Google folks, they build Chrome is like everything from Google should work at least. So I don't think you should need an extension in Chrome at least. Maybe another browser, even in another browsers, it works directly on any platform. But okay. Anyways, if it shows, then try it out. All right, guys, let's come back then. So this is the solution. The code is very simple. So we have used the short form, or you just take the input, that input goes to integer, and then this thing works. Did anyone try to enter a non-numeric value inside the int function? Did anyone try? What happens if you do that? Or maybe you don't enter anything, you just hit enter. What happens? Can anyone try and tell me? So this thing happens. So what? Yeah.
It is not defined. Like error comes.
Yeah. Sorry, it's not
Defined.
no, it's not like it's not defined. It's saying like you cannot convert this thing to an integer. It's saying that, for example, if I type any alphabet, you cannot convert it to an integer. All right, so that's what it is saying. So int is a function to which if you give a correct input, it works and converts it to an integer value. But if you don't give it an integer, raises something called as an exception. And this is an example of an exception, a value error. All right, so remember this term exception. I'll be using it very frequently now. And whenever I say exception, it means something went wrong and you get something like this. And this thing is called as a stack trace. So two things, exception, stack trace. So when I say stack trace, I mean this thing. Cool. Remember these two terms. These are very common in programming, with any programming language. So yeah, a good thing to remember. What exactly they are, how they relate, if you don't know, we'll probably explore later, but not right now. All right, for now, just keep these two terms in your mind. So the next thing to try out after this thing is, we're going to try out certain operators or operations that can be done on different data types. All right. For example, if you do 1 + 1 or 1 + 2, let's take something else. Let's say 3 + 2. We have already seen this and we know what these operators do. All right. But we don't know about these. Can you tell me based on line numbers? So to toggle line numbers on the code that you're running, the shortcut is L key. So if you are in escape mode and you press L key, the line numbers come and go away. All right, that's another shortcut for Jupyter notebooks. All right, so you're saying first one, is that correct? Second one is multiply. What is third one? What is the result of third one? It's a, hold on. So you're saying it's remainder. So slash is the division operator. And when you do a division, what outputs you get? You get a quotient and a remainder. So slash gives you quotient. It doesn't give you remainder. All right. So now if it gives you a quotient, so is it going to give you an integer or a float? What do you guys think?
Integer, I think.
Okay. And why not a float?
Because it gives a quotient, so I think it's an integer should be a 1.
No, but it tries to divide it completely and gives you a float remainder. And for the float also, it will give you the decimal value also. It gives you 1.5. So typically in certain programming languages, what happens is if you divide two integers, it gives you the answer as an integer. All right. So even if 3/2 would have been 1.5, it would give you only 1. So in those programming languages, you have to do some typecasting stuff. But in Python, in Python 3, in Python 2, it used to be like other programming languages. But in Python 3, if you do a division, it gives you a float, all right, with a proper decimal. But if you still want that behavior, there is something called as int division, which is your / operator. All right. Remember this thing. And to get the remainder, you have this modulus. And if you notice the last one, if you divide a smaller number by a bigger number and try to get the remainder, it will give you the smaller number as it is. So that's what modulus does in Python. All right, all these operators. Do you get some idea now, guys? Clear? Yes, no, something.
Yeah.
All right.
But
so,
there is no need of like assigning an integer or a float before for this.
Sorry, I didn't get where. What exactly?
Like for C or thing like C and C++, we use like to get the float, we use float. But yeah, and there is no need of doing that. Like for integer, we initialize int. But
yeah, you mean the typecasting and all that stuff? No, that's not needed. No. So Python like pretty much tries to solve all those issues that people typically have. Like you don't need to write redundant code. So it knows that if someone is dividing, they typically want a float. But if they want an integer, still they created another operator. So I don't think / is available in other programming languages, or maybe has the same meaning in other programming languages. But in Python, it's there and it says int division. All right, divide and give me an integer like that. Cool. Yeah, all right, great. Now let's come to what these are some basic data types. All right, I want you guys to do one thing. Can you guys go on your terminal or maybe on Jupyter Notebook and check dir of a string? Create any string and write dir of that thing. If your output comes like in multiple lines, put that thing inside a print itself. So try out and see what happens. Tell me your observation. Anyone try? So, okay, look at my screen now. If I do dir of, let's say, any string you just type over there and you run that thing, it gives you an output like this. So that's what I meant. Like you can put this inside a print and it would print properly. That's an issue with Jupyter Notebook. If you try the same thing on your interpreter in a terminal, it won't do that. So, but in Jupyter, it often prints these things in separate lines. So it's better you put a print of this thing. But once you do dir, it shows you a lot of things. Can you see this thing? So what happens is string is a data type. And when we were discussing data types, I told you data types define what operations you can do. And there is something in Python called as magic methods. We are not going to talk about it yet. All right, but if you see anything starting and ending with double underscores inside a data type, all right, so it's telling you what is inside this data type. So most of these are functions, except for some. This is not a function, this is a variable. How do you get to know? By experience. There's no other way. So this is a function and EQ is a function. And if you notice their names, add looks like it's going to do addition. EQ looks like it's going to check equality. GE is for greater than equal to. So lots of functions or operations are there that can be done. If I go and do the dir of an integer, it's going to be different. All right. Do you see certain new things inside an integer which are not there inside a string? For example, one very important thing that I showed you yesterday was subtraction. Can you subtract two integers? Yes. Two strings? No. So do you find a sub over there inside a string? No. So typically whatever operations are supported by a data type or at the class that is for the data type. So you can see there is a string class and each class defines what operations you can do. So these are the short names, or you can say these are the magic methods for each operation. Add is for plus, sub is for subtraction. So you get to know what operations you can do. But now if you look at the string, okay, inside string, there are lots of functions you can see over here. All right. But these are present inside the string. Okay. So to use these functions, let's say I create a string s equal to ABCD. And then I say, let's try this one. What does capitalize sound like to you? What would it do? What do you think?
It print the alphabets in uppercase.
Would it print or would it convert? It would convert. All right. So when I run this code, what do you expect to see on screen? Quick. Don't take so much time.
ABCD in bold letters.
But it doesn't. Okay. So I'll tell you one property. Strings in Python are immutable. So what it means is when you write this thing, it doesn't change what's present inside S. Instead, it creates another string which is the capital form of S. And that's called as immutability. So you cannot modify this thing, which is S, whatever is the content of S, but you can do this thing. When you call capitalize, it's going to give you a copy of the same string in capital. That's what it does. Is that clear? Okay, Bhavya, you're saying can we use upper? Yeah, capitalize, it's not actually going to convert everything in capital. It's like more like a sentence case kind of thing. Okay. Or capitalize the first word. So to convert everything to capital, your answer, what you are saying is correct. You can use upper, but again, upper won't modify the actual thing. It would just create a copy of the thing in capital. Is that clear now to everyone? Yes or no?
Yes.
Got it.
Fine. So remember this term immutable. All right. It will often come in the context of Python. All right. So strings are immutable. Many data types in Python are immutable. Some are not. We'll go into the details gradually, but remember this term immutable. So strings are immutable. Stick that in your head. Cool. Now look at certain more functions. If you see, there is something called as what? Ends with. What do you think it does? I'll show you. Okay, before I show you, all right, I'll just show you this thing. So right now what I've done is I've stored the string inside a variable and then called the function. You can also write things like this. something like this. So now what does ends with do? It checks whether something is ending with something or not. All right. So if I say ABC ends with BC, is that correct or not? Yes or no?
Correct.
Yeah. So is the answer going to be a string or a Boolean? Is it going to be yes, no, or a string? So
Yes or no?
yes or no. So yes or no in Python is noted by true and false or Boolean. All right. So Boolean is the data type which can have only two values, either true or false. Your integers can have infinite number of values, -1, minus. There's no limit to that. All right. But your Booleans do have a finite set, which is your true and false, T in capital and F in small, and F of false in capital. Remember that, and ends with tells you whether something is the answer yes or no, something like that. Cool. So by the name of function, you can intuitively sometimes get to know what that does. Okay.
Like it is like a if operation.
Yeah, it's like an if operation. So if I ask you to implement this function yourself, then probably you'll use an if inside it. Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Cool. So there are many functions. We'll keep using them gradually. But before that, can you answer me certain questions? Let's say print 1 is greater than 2. Is it true or false?
False.
So these are operators. So this was function. You notice that I'm saying of this data type string, call the function ends with. So how do you call it? You have to put a dot, and inside the bracket, you can or cannot pass something depending on what you're doing. For example, to capitalize, you don't need anything. So you just leave it. But ends with, you have to tell it. What should you check whether it ends with or not? So you have to pass in some things, and these things are called as arguments. So ends with is a function. You're calling it on an object of type string. So this ABC is an object of type string, and you're passing a string inside it. Okay, cool. These are operators. These are operators, and when you call them, depending on what operator it is, for example, plus minus was giving you different result. These comparison operator give you what? Boolean. Cool. If I go and say, let's say AB is, or let's say A is greater than small a, would that be true or false? Yes, no. Or would it even work or not? That's also an option.
I don't know if it works.
If it works, then what does it do? If it doesn't work, that's a different case.
I think it should say
True or false?
True,
True?
I think. Yeah.
No, actually it says false. Why does it say? If you would have studied that in college, probably in computer science related topics, there's something called as Ascii values. So if I say ORD of capital A, it says 65. If I say of small a, it says 97. Now which one is bigger?
Yeah. Okay.
Small a. All right, so remember this thing. When you're working with strings in each and every symbol inside a string is actually, just think, how does the computer store data? It stores it in the form of bits and bytes. All right, so it doesn't give an error. Yeah, so it stores it in the form of bits and bytes. And if you ever study computer science theory basic, so you would remember, or you would understand that let's say I have 2 bits. Okay, each bit can represent only one value. All right, so sorry, each bit can represent only 2 values. It can either be 0 or it can either be 1. All right, now if I take 1 bit, it can either be 0 or it can be 1. So now I can say if the value is 0, I'll consider it as 0. If the value is 1, I'll consider it as 1. So if you take only 1 bit, how much data you can store? Only 2 values, either 0 or 1. If I take 2 bits, they can both be 0 or they can both be what? 0, 1. Sorry, 1, 0 or 1, 1. Now I can say, I'll call it as, when the value is 00, I'll assume it as 0. When the value is this, I'll assume it as 1. When the value is this, I'll assume it as 2. And the value is this, I'll assume it as 3. How many different values can you represent now? 4. All right. So as you keep increasing the number of bits and you go to 1 byte, all right, so you would remember the range yesterday, -128 to +127. So you can represent around 256 symbols if you take 1 byte. 1 byte is equal to how many bits? 8 bits. All right. So now in computer science theory, people are taught that you can convert a binary value. This is binary, all right, and you can convert it to a decimal value. So this is decimal number system. The numbers that we write on our notebooks and in everyday life, that's called as decimal number system. So you can convert 0, 0, all these combinations to decimal numbers. So, but when you ask your computer to store an alphabet, so how does the conversion happen? Actually, you do division and multiplication to convert a binary value to a decimal, or a decimal back to a binary. All right, you do multiplication or division depending on what operation you're doing. But can you divide or multiply alphabets? No. So what they did was they said, like, we'll denote each alphabet by a numeric value. And since we have a numeric value, while storing it, we can now convert it to binary and store it, because the system stores everything in the form of binary. It's that simple. So that's why for each value, you have a numeric value, and there are fixed values. It's fixed. And these are the values for capital A and small a. Similarly, if I go and I say capital B, what do you think would be the value? +1. So capital B would be what? 66, and small b would be what?
98.
Do you understand now how the comparison happens for strings? Another thing that's important for programming is, if someone is new to programming, there's a weird operator in programming called as equal to equal to. All right, and there is already one which we have seen, which is called as equal to. There are two different things. Why there are two weird looking equal to is because one equal to is used to say, like, create an identifier and it should contain this data. It says assignment operator. And the second one is called as equality. You want to check whether two things are equal or not. So that's called as an equality operator. Yeah, it's a logical operator, correct? And the previous one is the assignment operator. So both have two different functions. So when I say, is capital A equal to small a, would that be true or false?
No.
No. Can I do that with integers? Yes. Can you try, like, doing it with an integer and string on your system by yourself? Quick. Did you guys try? Does it work, or does it give an error if you try to compare an integer and a string? Works or not? What result it gives you is a secondary thing, but does it give you an error or does it work?
Works. It says false.
False. Why? Because if the data types are different, you cannot compare them. Sorry, they are not equal, definitely. So even if you put the same value as a string and a integer, or maybe a float also, it's going to say false. All right. But if you do something like this, does it say true or false? Did you get the idea? What I mean? For certain types, the operation or the behavior is different, but for certain types, it makes sense. Just think, you may want to sometime compare that, is the float value of something is actually equal to the integer value of something? Yes, you may want to do that. So they have defined equal to work differently for different operators also. Sorry, for different operands. So 2 and 2.0 are operands, and equal to is an operator. Does it make sense to everyone now? What's happening and all this stuff? If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll recap. Anything? Okay. So let's get down a bit. Hold on. What's the shortcut for creating a new cell below? Okay, I thought someone would answer. Cool. So it's B. So to create a new cell, you just press B and a new cell gets created. So till now we have discussed a bit on input and something on data types. So what do we do next? I want you guys to do one thing, one simple thing. Write a program to input what number. All right, and before that, I'll show you one more thing. Let's say I have a string, or let's say I put my name. Fine. Then I say, oh, let's split this thing. You can join two strings and store it back in the same string. All right. So you can do things like this. You can also do things like this. So when you do multiplication of a string and an integer, what it does, it repeats the integer the string that many times. Fine. Remember this thing. Cool. Also, I'll show you one more thing. There's something in programming languages called as escape sequence. Right. What they do is there a way to like type a like, for example, when I'm typing code, when I hit enter, cursor moves to the next line. All right. How do you represent that when storing a string? Because a blank line is a blank line. How do you represent it? So what programming languages do is they define something called as escape sequences. Escape sequences start with backslash or a forward slash. I don't know which slash this is. This is the slash, not the other one. And there's one called a slash in. All right. And what slash in does is, let's say I write it's going to move the cursor to the next line. It's called as a new line character, backslash in. Cool. Fine. Similar to backslash n, there is something called as slash t. T means a tab. So this is your new line. The tab. And this slash n can also be written as a string like this. I'm writing this. All right. So just remember these two things which I've shown to you guys, and write a program to input a, let's say a name and print it 100 times on screen in separate lines. Cool. So what I want you guys to do is you should enter a name from the input function, and whatever gets entered, it should get printed 100 times. So for printing 100 times, you can use the multiply operator, but while printing, each name should come in a separate line. Okay, this is a simple problem. Just use your mind based on the two things that I've shown to you right now, and give me a solution over here. I'll clear this. This is the problem. Quick 1 minute and give me the solution. Okay, there's one solution. So if I run this, it prints my name, but it doesn't print in separate lines. It prints in the same line. You don't need to use anything which I haven't taught you. Okay, so you have seen two things right now. One is a multiplication operator. It does this 100 times thing, but it's not coming in the different lines. So yeah, that's correct. So, but we need to take the input from user. So this is one thing. Hold on. If I run this thing, it prints in separate lines, but I need to do the same thing with this thing. So for doing that, what I'll do is, before printing it, I'll say name equal to name plus slash in, and now if I do this thing, it prints in separate lines. Does it make sense? Simple. Using these two things, you could have done that. Typically, when someone asks you to write this kind of program, you use a loop. Loops we'll talk about later, but you can do these things without loops also. Okay. But yeah, good thing. This was good. Yeah, this is the same thing. Yeah, that's good, guys. Great. Got the idea now how we are going to go. Okay. So What next? Any questions till now? Otherwise, we'll continue with some more programs or a concept and then some questions. So we have seen what all till now: input, type conversion, and something. So for type conversion, we haven't seen. Hold on. So we have seen only int conversion. Okay. So with int, we have seen only strings. So you can also write something like, if you want to convert a float to an integer, you can write something like this. It will give you only the integer part. Earlier, we had done it with strings. Similarly, if you have a float, so if you want to convert something to a float, this is already a float, so nothing happens. But if you want to say, like, I have a string which contains a float, now please convert it to a float data type for me, you can do that as well. But when you're printing it, it just doesn't show whether it's a float or a string, because if you print it like this also, it's going to get printed the same way. So to actually, when you are running programs and if you ever get a type error, the best thing is to go and print the type of whatever is giving the issue. So use the type function over there. Okay. When you're actually working on production code or in a team and you're building some feature and then you need it, always better to check type if you get the type error issue kind of thing. Also, there are many ways of converting. Also, we'll talk about Booleans a bit. These are very important data type. Boolean is a very important data type in Python. So in most of the programming languages, including Python, you can convert other data types to Boolean or maybe use other data types as Boolean. Okay. For example, what should I do? Let's say you can, so the type or the function to get a Boolean is bool. All right. If you call it directly, it gives you a default value of false. Similarly, you have int also. If you just call int like this, it gives you default 0. Float default would be what? 0.0. Strings default would be what? Empty string. Cool. Coming back to Booleans, let's go down and let's see some magic. Bool of 0. What do you think? Can you convert 0 to a Boolean? Yes or no? Yes, you can. It gives you false. Okay, 0 is treated as false. If I write Boolean of true, what do you think you would get? True or false? Quick, guys. So, okay, hold on. Something on chat, I didn't notice that. Okay. What do you think you would get out when you say Boolean of true in as a string? True or false?
I think true.
True. Okay. If I say false, Boolean of false, what do you get now?
I think again true because it has some value.
Correct. So don't get so the behavior of Boolean is somewhat different from what your intent float does. So what Boolean says is any non-zero value is true. Okay. It means if something is 0, only then it is false, otherwise it's true. So 0.0 is what? False. Empty string is what? False. But a string which contains anything is true. All right. And if you say Boolean of this thing, -1, that's also true. So everything is true apart from 0 values. So the 0 of all these data types is what? 0, 0, and empty string. Got the idea? Similar things are there in other programming languages. Python has more support for this thing. Some other languages might not have this much support. I'll show you when we talk about non-primitive data types, but that's the idea. What the same? True and false are bool, so true. Okay, cool, just be that's correct. So that's an interesting thing about Booleans. Now, after Booleans, to write some better pieces of code, we need to learn what? Let me think. What next? So you guys are getting what all I'm typing right now. Are you practicing also, like in parallel? It's tough to do in parallel, but still. If you have 2 monitors, then it's easy. If you don't have 2 monitors, then it's tough. Okay, that's a bit about your fundamental data types. Can we write some programs over here? Yeah, let's talk about strings first. Strings are also really important, and we'll start by exploring some functions again. So str is the class. Last time when I did dir of a string, we put an actual string object. Right now I'm putting the class name, and it gives me the same output. Okay. Now we'll start with certain functions. First thing was capitalize. You already saw. Case fold is like change the case, capital to small, small to capital. Center, I don't remember what center does. It's not that important for me. Count is to count something. Encode is something to change the encoding of text, how it is getting encoded. There are different encodings. If you would have noticed while saving a text file, it says UTF-8, ASCII, or Unicode something. So there are different encodings for your text. Just like how I was saying, when you have to store text into your system, it gets converted to number. But there are different kinds of number encodings also. So that's what encode does. Similar to encode, there is a decode also. Okay. Ends with, you already saw expand tabs. I think it converts all the tabs to spaces. Find is used to find something. I'll show you what find does. Print. And okay. Before we go to find, let's talk about important thing. There are two kinds of types, immutable and mutable. All right, strings are immutable. You cannot modify them. To do a change, you need to create a copy of it. Similarly, there are types called as sequence types. Not similarly, like there is a category, but obviously the meaning is different. Sequence types mean something which is a collection of something. For example, if I write s equal to a, b, c, d, so this a, b, c, d is a sequence of individual alphabets. All right, so this is a sequence type. Strings are sequences. Now, whenever we are talking about sequences in any programming language, there's a notion of position. So A is at first position, B is at second, C is at third, and D is at fourth. All right. But programming languages are weird. So they start numbering them from 0. And like that, this goes. So how many total characters are there inside us? Can anyone tell me? How many total are there?
4.
4. How do we check it? There's a function called as len. All right. And notice the difference. I'm not saying s.len. I'm saying len of s. All right. So len gives you the length of the thing. How many elements are there? Notice what I typed. It works with any sequence type, not just strings. We'll see that later. Okay. So if the length of s is 4, what is the position of last character? Length minus 1. Okay. That's always fixed. And there is an operator in programming language called as indexing operator. All right. So, and what it allows you to do is this index operator. So these things are called as indexes. So the starting index or the starting first position is always 0, and the last position is length minus 1. Okay. So if I want to say out of the string, I want the last character, you can say, or let's say the first character, you can say something like this. It gives you the first character. If I want to say something like, give me the last character. So how do I get to know? For this case, I know directly that it's 3. Otherwise, you can write something like this. How do you get the length of something? Len of s minus 1. And this gives you the last character. Does this make sense to everyone? Yes or no?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So if everyone understood this thing, I have a question. Let's go down and write a program to input a string and print the middle character. And now I'll tell you one thing. So whenever the thing or something comes about middle, so there are two cases. For example, if your string is A, B, C, obviously there's a middle character, which is what? B. But if you have A, B, C, D, there's no middle character. So in that case, you can either print B or C. That's up to you. So for me, I'll print C. Can you guys quickly write a program and make sure you take input this time? All right, no hard coding like this. So this is hard coded value, ABCD/. No hard coded values, take input, store it inside a variable. Whatever comes inside it, print the middle character. Quick. how do you get the position of, just notice what I've done already. So you already know how to get a particular character out of a string, and you just need to find out the index. How do you calculate the index is what you have to think. How do you get the middle index? Okay, who has pasted this code? We actually want something dynamic. Okay, just be dynamic in the sense, see, this is ABC, which is hard coded. Let's say you are writing a program where the user can enter their name or any kind of string, and for that string you have to calculate the middle thing. So how do you get it for a dynamic case? Okay, not for a hard coded case. So it's length/2, but can you give me the code, Bhavya, quick? If you are joining from a desktop or a laptop, not from a phone. How do you get the length of string? Len of wherever you are storing the value, and how do you get the middle value? And can the index be integer or can it be a float also? Beware of that thing. Okay, I'll type it quick. So I want a string, so no need to do any type conversion to int or float. Leave it as it is. Now I want the middle position. Let's say length of s/2. If I do this thing, will it work or not? Quick. Yes or no? Tell me, guys.
Yes.
Okay. What is the type returned by the division operator? A float or integer?
We are doing the characters, right? Like for the string.
Hold on. What does length of s gives you? If I see, how does this code execute is first you say s equal to input. So whatever I've typed over here will get stored inside s. So in this case, I'm typing my name. So that goes into s. When you say length of s, it will calculate the length of what I've typed. So the length is 6.
Yeah, 6.
When you do 6/2, what do you get?
Integer. Like 3 is the value.
So but remember, whenever you use slash in Python, it always gives you a float. Okay. So then how do you fix it? Use the integer division. You say, and it gives you the string. First say ABC, will give me B. Got the idea. So this is one place where you can often use your int division kind of thing. You just put it over there and it gives you an integer directly. So I wanted to compute the middle index, and how do I get it //? Cool. So a simple thing, simple program. Okay. Any questions, guys, right now about this thing? So as you learn these things, you can gradually like keep on mix matching these things and solve problems, build problems and solve them, or maybe go online and solve them. For example, if anyone is learning Python, I would definitely recommend to go to any kind of online these interview preparation kind of platforms where they give you questions like Hacker Earth, Hacker Rank, LeetCode, or etc., and practice Python based problems over there. Or if they are general data structures problems, then or algorithm problems, go there and solve those problems in Python. You'll become comfortable with Python that way. So the more code you write, the better what it's gonna be. Cool. So yeah, this is something. What next? So this is your basics of the fundamental data types in Python. There are compound data types, or I would say non-fundamental data types, which are called as list, tuples, etc. Okay. So we'll talk about it in a bit, but before that, let's hold on. There is a site named enableetabits.com. It has 10K plus Python challenges. Nice. 10K plus is huge. Guys, give it a shot. I don't know how good that site is. I am hearing the name for the first time, but if give it a shot. I'll also try it out later. I'll keep it open in a tab. Okay, for now, let's come back and see this thing. So for this thing, what next? Would you guys like to write programs, or should I continue as I'm going on? Like explaining things and not much programs, as we are doing right now. A couple of programs I'm waiting. Otherwise, I'll just explain. Problems or no problems? Okay, I'll take it as a no. Cool. Now let's see certain constructs in Python. Okay, problems.
Like
okay.
we are getting like numbers like 6 letters or not, like even or odd letters. In that case, which letter will be printing? Like we have 7 letters, like 7 letters.
For 7, you have a candidate for the middle value, which is 4. So it'll get
4.
the middle character.
In case of like for 8, we have will have the value 4. So
yeah.
In that, like if you want to give the other letter or the other side of the thing, what?
Okay, you can do something like this. When you do this for 8, what happens? What does it give you? 7 divided by 2. 7 divided by 2 is going to give you 3.5. If you take only integer, then it gives you 3. So it gives you the other side. But if you give it, let's say 7 characters, then what does it do? 7 minus 1, 6. 6 divided by what? 2 gives you 3. So 3 is the middle character. So it works for both the cases. Got it? So you can do simple here movement of these values and it would change things. Cool.
Yeah, of course.
So let me put both examples. Fine. It gives you both. All right. What next? So this thing that we just saw is called as indexing. All right. There is another thing called as slicing. Okay. So there are 2 operations. One is indexing and one is slicing. Indexing gives you only a single element. Slicing gives you a slice or a piece of something. But they both use the same operator, the bracket, but the way they use is different. For example, if I have a string s equal to ABCD, and let's put indexes over here. Let's have some more characters. All right, and if I say print s of 3, what does it print? If I put s of 3, what would it print, guys? Quick.
3. What? CC.
It would print D. Look on the indexes and then notice.
Yeah, D.
It gives you D. All right. Let's say. So mostly programming languages don't support negative indexing, but this thing does. Yeah, correct. Okay, yeah. It gives you a D. So, but Python supports negative indexing. Negative means instead of starting from the beginning, you start from the rear. But since is there a -1 and +1? Are both 2 different things or same thing? Are both equal or different?
No, it's different.
It's different. Have you ever heard of -0 and +0?
No.
So if I say -0, is it the same as 0?
Yeah, I think yes.
Yeah. So can you have -0 and +0? No. So that's why what happens is for negative indexes, the indexes start from 1. So the first negative index is -1. So -1 start from reverse. So if I say s of -1, it's going to give me what? Last character. All right. And what does it give me over here? I. And if I say print s of let's say 9, it's going to give me what? -9. It's going to give me what? The first character. Also, since the range of indexes is fixed, if you try to access something which doesn't exist, it's going to give an exception called as index error. Notice this thing. When does this come? You try to access an index which doesn't exist. So -10 is an invalid index. Similarly, +10 is also an invalid index because the last one is only what? 8. So if you try to go to a wrong index, it's going to give you an error. Remember this error. So whenever you see this error, it means you are using a wrong index somewhere. Okay. Remember this thing related to indexing in your mind. Fine. So there is a thing called as negative indexing also, and it starts from reverse. Since it starts from reverse, it's starting from -1 because there's nothing like -0. Hence, if the last positive index is 8, the negative would be -9. Okay, +1 because it doesn't start from 0. Cool. Now, with this in mind, let's come to slicing. Slicing says this thing. You can take a slice or a piece of something. How does slicing work is, you can use it like this. You can use it like this. Like this. And how, maybe like this, let's say 6. So these are the outputs of this thing. Try to relate this thing to the indexes that I've written. Take a minute and try to relate it yourself. All right, guys. So in case of slicing, there are two things. There is actually a syntax. A slice is always written like this. See very carefully. Start, column, end, column, step. Right now, I'm not using the third value to keep things simple, but we are using two values, start and end. Start means from which position you want to start. So I'm saying start from 3, but I'm not specifying end. So it goes till all the end all the way and it prints everything, or it slices everything. Cool. And slicing is a very important thing in Python kind of programming languages which support it. It's really important. In the second one, I say start from 3 and go till 5. When you say till 5, the end is never included. So it means it will stop at 4. So it is only going to give you T and E. Then you say start from the beginning because you're not specifying anything. It means beginning and go till 5. 5 means it will stop at 4 again. So it will give you only till A to E, from the beginning till E. So the end is never included. And this end is never included is useful in a lot of things. So keep this in your head right now. Okay, not just slicing. It is used at other places also. That the loss is never reached. So the next thing is, when you say 1 colon 6, right now I'm again using both values. So I'm saying start from 1. So start from B, and 6 means go till only 5. So it gives you till F. But there's another interesting property with slicing. If I put this thing, what do you think would happen? Error, or does it work? Have you ever seen this? If you have seen this, then only you can guess. Otherwise, it's just Python's behavior. So if I run this, no error. So when you do slicing and you give an invalid index, it just sees whether it's possible or not. If it is possible, it's going to give you whatever is possible. If nothing is possible, then it is going to give you an empty string. For example, let's try this, if it works or not. Is there an index 20? No. Is there an index 60? No. Hold on. I deleted the bracket. So what does it give you? It gives an empty string. So empty string is not visible. You'll be able to see empty string if I just put a thing after it. So you can see there was an empty string. Cool. So with slicing, you can give invalid indexes and it just works. Fine. But now let's come to step size. What if you want to say that, okay, I want to take the characters, I want to slice them, but I want to jump or skip a character. So I can write something like this. So what I'm saying is, since I've not specified start, it's going to be taken from the beginning. I haven't specified an end, it's going to be taken till the end. And there is a step 2. Step 2 means start from A, then jump to C, then to E, then to G, then to I. So it gives you this thing. If I want to increase the step size, I can do that as well. Let's say 4. It will jump with 4 characters at a time, like this. And you can also specify a starting and an ending value also. For example, with step size 2, I say start from 3rd character. So it starts from D directly. All right, and I'll just put my name over here so that it doesn't get confused with this. Read both these pieces, this one and this one, and ask me any questions you have. Any questions? If you want me to scroll up or down a bit or paste the code something on this thing, I'll be happy to do that. Just let me know. So this thing is called as slicing. Okay. We'll probably use it a bit, but this indexing and slicing is something which is available for sequence types again. All right. So we started talking about sequence types over here. We talked about there is a length of sequence. Similarly, you can index or slice a sequence, and the behavior is same. The same jump part, step size. Don't go till the end value. Stop one step before it. All that works with your step size and all this also. Okay, and these things also work. You can also specify an end value, so it won't go till 7. It will just stop whatever is possible to take before 7. All right. One interesting property of indexing, not indexing, it's a slicing, is the negative step size. If you just skip everything and you say -1, 1 means you're not jumping, you're just going directly 1, 2, 3, 4, but you're going in the reverse direction. So it has the effect of reversing the thing. So if you want to reverse something, it's like this. All right. Got the idea, everyone? Any questions? If you have, let me know. Otherwise, I have a question for you guys. All right, so the question is, you have to print true or false if something is a palindrome or not. Palindrome means if you have a string, you reverse it, and if you get the same thing back, it's called as a palindrome. All right, so if you reverse ABA, you get ABA, both are equal. And if you reverse ABC, you don't get ABC, you get CBA. All right, so that's not a palindrome. Same thing for others. Can you guys quickly try out? And you don't need to use any if else over here. You just need to use slicing and the equality operator, and that's it. Quick, can you please try out and paste your solution over here? Make it fast. I'm pasting the question on your this thing, and try it out quick. Anyone trying, guys? If you're trying, let me know. I'll wait. Otherwise, I'll type the solution. Just ping me or unmute yourself. Let me know if you want me to wait. All right, that works. Also, that's it. This much is the code. So we are checking whether something is a palindrome or not. All right, simple. That's correct, Neelam. This is pretty simple. All right, so we are using very basic concepts of Python programming language, but now look carefully. I'm just printing whether the situation is true or false, all right, whether the condition is true or false. I'm not doing any operations, or I'm not doing any steps based on whether the condition is true or false. For example, I may say that ask someone to input their salary. If the salary is 10 lakhs, they have to print the interest rate, all right. But if their salary is 10 lakhs, charge them on 5%. But if their salary is 20 lakhs, charge them at 20%. All right. If you want to do this, So there's a difference between the code that we have written right now and the one thing that I'm asking you. In this case, we are checking a condition, which is whether S and R are equal. All right, the original string and its reverse are equal, but we are not actually doing anything based on that result, whether it's true or false. In cases where you want to do an operation based on whether some such condition is true or false, programming languages provide a construct called as if else or conditions. All right, and if else is basically like, if the condition is like this true, then do something, otherwise do something else. For example, and the construct is like this. There is a keyword in Python called as if. So if is a keyword, it's not an identifier, it's a predefined thing. And I say 1 is equal to 1. Print 1, or let's say true. Print, or let's just say 1 equal to 1. Else print not equal or something. In this case, if you notice, the syntax is somewhat different. Different in the sense, till now we have been writing the code which was all aligned to the margin towards the left hand side. But Python uses something called as indentation. Okay. What is indentation and why is it important? When I say if this situation is correct or the situation condition is true, then do these steps. Now that step can be 1, it can be multiple, it can be 100, it can be 5. So how do you tell the programming language or your interpreter that, okay, these all statements are together and they have to be executed if the condition is true? And similarly for else, if the condition is false, these are the statements that have to be executed. So many programming languages use a notion of braces like this. You put some code inside braces and whatever you have put inside the braces is counted together. All right. And this thing is called as a block or a code block. Whereas in Python doesn't use these braces. What it says is, after you've returned a statement which expects something to be a part of it. For example, this code is a part of this if. What you do is you write all the code after a level of indentation or a tab. Okay, indentation can be spaces or tabs. So we are using spaces over here. So Jupyter by default uses spaces. Even if you press a tab, it automatically converts it to spaces. Fine. So whatever code I write with the same level of indentation after if, it all belongs to if. And if this condition is true, this all code will get executed. If the condition is false, this all code will get skipped and the second code which belongs to else will get executed. This is called as your conditions. All right. So I'll say if, and over here I'll say else. And over here I can say, let's say print outside. So if you notice over here, this statement is written after else. Let's say I remove the blank line, but this is not indented with the same level. So it means it neither belongs to this if and it neither belongs to this else. So it's outside. So what it means is this condition or this statement will get executed irrespective of what happens above. When we use if else, either of the code gets executed, either the first one or the second one. But if I run this right now, so you see, since 1 is equal to 1, it executes the first code and skips the second one, but this one gets executed. If I make the condition opposite, instead of equal to, I write not equal to. Not equal to means exclamation and equal to symbol, it denotes not equal to. If I run this, it prints the second block, but this thing still gets printed. And this is how you write conditional logic inside a programming language in Python and other languages also, but the syntax varies a bit. Right now we are using braces. Over there right now we are using tabs or indentation. Over there we use blocks or these braces for marking a group of statements or a block of code. All right. Can you guess? I'm going to give this code to you. And not this code exactly. Let's try out something else. But is this thing clear, guys? Any questions you have right now? Anything? Okay.
No.
Let's start.
Doesn't it execute which is inside the flower braces or something like that? Is that something?
Yes, flower braces, other programming languages use flower braces like this. All right. But Python doesn't use that. So in other programming languages, you might have written like this and even like this.
Yeah, like
condition inside the bracket.
so if we use flower braces, it doesn't execute the thing inside that.
Yeah, it won't work. In Python, you have to use this thing only, the indentation based stuff.
Okay.
The flower braces don't work.
If they put the loop inside like flower braces, so it doesn't work.
No, it won't work. Python always uses indentation. It never uses braces. And the indentation needs to be consistent. You cannot write something like this. It gives unexpected indent. The indentation has to match. If you're using 4 spaces for indentation, you have to use 4. You cannot change like this. Okay. But you can do something like this. Notice. Within a block, all elements have to be at the same indentation. But if you write the next block, it can be different. But typically, you don't see people writing stuff like mixed indentation. It should always be consistent. Okay. Otherwise, it confuses the readers of your code. Let's say someone has written code in your company and you are reading their code. Maybe you want to add a feature. It will be confusing for you to read. So we should tend to avoid confusing code. So always use consistent indentation. All right. I don't know if I have pointed you guys to this thing. Hold on. Is this the official? No, this is not. Okay, I wanted to show you one thing, but I'm not able to find it. So basically, I wanted to take you to this slide, this thing, which is docs.python.org. So if you want to read anything about Python, you should always try to read it from here. The reason is if it's a Python feature directly, a direct Python feature, then only you can find it. If it's a library, you have to read the library's documentation. If it's a Python's library or Python's feature, you should always go to docs.python.org and read the documentation from here. Because it's going to give you the exact correct thing about Python, the latest thing, and you can see it also tells you for which version you are reading, because some things change with version. It was different in previous version, it might be different in a newer version, so that keeps on happening. So if you want to read anything about Python, try to read it from here. For example, Python int type. Definitely your top few searches might be different, but it will also show you Python most of the time. So you can see there are built-in types and it tells you about all the operators. I have not talked about all of them, but you can see whatever I've been talking about today and probably a part of yesterday, it's all mentioned over here. So this is about the standard or the fundamental types. And apart from the standard types, these are also standard types, but they are not the very basic ones. These are compound types or somewhat advanced types. And you can notice the term sequence types over here, as I was talking about them with regards to strings. So these are sequence types available in Python. So Python's documentation is the best place to read about Python, anything about Python. So try to read whatever you want from here. They also give you examples and it's really good. Okay. And it cannot be like someone wrote a blog and by mistake they wrote something wrong. Because it's documentation, it's 99.9999% going to be correct. All right. So refer to docs always. Cool. All right. Let's come back then. Clear about indentation and this stuff, guys? Any questions? Why we don't use flower braces? It's Python's syntax. We cannot do anything about it. There's no logic behind it. The creator of Python chose to not use braces. He chose to use this indentation. It's his choice. We cannot do anything with it right now. It's not supported. All right. Also, there's some interesting things if you go to Python and they put this. There's a keyword in Python called as import. We haven't talked about it, but I'll tell you a bit about it. But there's a thing called as import. So if you write import this, it tells you something about maybe in general in life, or maybe you can say in terms of programming also, these things are correct. So you can read about it, it's fun. Also, there is import anti-gravity. This is interesting. Whenever I open it in some session, I start reading it. So it's a comic about all this stuff. And you can I don't know, you can waste time on this if you are bored, but there are a few interesting things hidden inside Python. These kind of things are called as Easter eggs. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Also, if you say if you notice this thing, you are saying future is also a module in Python or library in Python, and I'm saying import braces from it. So it says syntax error, not a chance. All right. So they are saying like there won't be ever braces inside Python. You'll always be using indentation for creating blocks. So it's kind of humorous if you like this kind of humor. But yeah, these kind of things are also there in Python itself. You can try them from interpreter. Import this, import anti-gravity from future import braces, all that stuff. Okay. Questions, guys, right now? Anything? We'll try a few programs with this, and I think it's going to be it soon. So we'll close for today and then continue tomorrow. All right, let's write a few programs. So first thing what we'll do is write a program. So I'll quickly write the code. Enter a number. And after entering this, I'll just print n modulus 2. So if I enter an even number, it's going to give me a remainder of 0. If I enter an odd number, it's going to give me a remainder of what? 1. All right, that's always fixed. So if you divide something by something, you always get a remainder less than the number with which you are dividing. So if I divide by 2, I'll always get a remainder either 0 or never higher than that. All right. So based on this, I can write a condition. If n modulus 2 is equal to 0, I can just go and say print even. Otherwise, I'll write an else, and after else there is never a condition. I'll just say print odd. So if I type this now, so it says odd. It also prints remainder. I'll remove that. So yeah. If I type an even number, it will give me even, and that's it. This thing works like this. Did everyone understand? So an if else statement is like this. You write an if, then you write the condition. If the condition is true, its result is true based on whatever is the value of variables that you're using. It will execute this code. If it turns out to be false at runtime, it's going to jump to the next one and execute it. It's that simple. Okay. Now I want you guys to write a program to input a number and print whether it's even or odd. Okay. Not even or odd, sorry, my bad. Whether it's a multiple of 5 or not. There's a popular thing called as FizzBuzz, which is like this. So here you are saying like you have to input a number, and if it is divisible by both 3 and 5, you print FizzBuzz. Otherwise, if it is divisible by 3, you print fizz. If divisible by only 5, then buzz, and otherwise you just print hold on. Okay, it's a bit different. It's a extended version of FizzBuzz, but it's like if you get none of these, then you print something else. I don't remember what you do, but it's like that. So they have added an array also on top of it, but yeah. So this thing that we are writing is somewhat reduced version of FizzBuzz. Yeah. Can you guys quickly try it out? Like if the number is divisible by 5, just print whether it is a multiple of 5 or not. Yes, true or false. Simple. And after that, we'll close for today. Hold on. So your solution is like this. No, it doesn't work like that. So this condition is for even number, and this condition will never be true, because if you divide a number by 2, you can never get a remainder as 5. It will always be either 0 or 1. So this condition is always false. So it's like it doesn't exist, and this will be for even numbers. So okay, so for this thing, it's going to be similar to what we have written previously. Just take the number as input, and after you have the number, you have to try to divide it by 5. If the remainder is 0, it means it is divisible by 5. So you just say divisible by 5. Otherwise, you say not divisible, not a multiple or something. Alright, so if I enter 4, it's not a multiple. If I enter 5, it's a multiple. If I enter 55, it's a multiple. If I enter 991 or something, it's not a multiple. It's that simple. Alright, so this is what this thing is. I'll interrupt this thing. I don't want to give an input. So this is how this thing works. This is basic if else. Probably will continue from here tomorrow. And let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll stop here and resume from here tomorrow. Any questions, any problems? Whoever has stayed till now. This thing is saved, so I'll go and I'll stop the interpreter, commit it, and push. Alright, guys, feel free to talk. I'll just commit the notebooks and push it onto the repo. Alright, that's pushed. Alright, guys, see you tomorrow.